Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, what makes you optimistic? Or when life presents you with one of its donuts, do you see only the whole? Were you uplifted on January the 20th when the greatest speechmaker of our time took office as President of the United States? History was made that day. Even the British media reflected a mood of optimism. Of course, the next day, we were pretty much back to business as usual, with Private Fraser once again writing the headlines. We're doomed. We're all doomed. They say, don't they, that if your glass is half empty, you are a pessimist. On the other hand, if your glass is half full, you're obviously Boris Johnson's hairdresser. I am here today, ladies and gentlemen, to plant a flag in the ground on behalf of optimism. And I want to do that because optimism is the bedrock of our emotional health, and because I want to challenge the tyranny of pernicious pessimism that pervades our society. It is a tyranny that puts fear first, morbid curiosity second, and even drives quality comedy from our television screens whilst it's about it. Let me give you an example of that rarest of creatures, a true optimist in action. A flying instructor. These are people, ladies and gentlemen, who make their living by putting their lives into the hands of perfect strangers. And a recent survey of flying instructors discovered that when their trainee pupils, the trainee pilots, get into difficulties, they will frequently panic and push forward on the control column, holding it in a sort of aeronautical death grip. Apparently deep in the back of their minds, even as they scream towards the ground, the trainee believes everything will be all right because the instructor can take over at any moment. What they're forgetting from lesson 2 is not until they let go of that control column. It is at this point, ladies and gentlemen, that the instructor thinks quickly and says in that very, very calm voice that they use at moments like this, I have control of the aircraft, you may release the stick now. At which point, the trainee promptly does, and they both get another day to worry about the future. But I cannot deny, these are heavy days for pessimists. All their best nightmares have come true. War, the economy, the environment. They are queuing up to have the words, I told you so, tattooed on their foreheads. And pessimists, ladies and gentlemen, are in the ascendancy because our own world is changing. And this provides them with a plethora of media-fueled belief systems, all of which are based on fear. As for optimists, it's a bit like being a member of a long-lost Amazonian tribe. They're generally thought to exist, but no one's actually seen one for 35 years. Let's be clear, there's nothing wrong with applying the healthy scepticism as salt and vinegar to the fish and chips of life. But corrosive pessimism is eroding our emotional health and creating distortions in our behaviour. For example, parents declining perfectly safe vaccination programmes for their children. And when I talk about being an optimist, I'm not talking about the sort of gormless naivety that can lead to booking your annual holiday as a fortnight for 2 in Pyongyang. Or inviting Heston Blumenthal to cook for the G20. No. If you're an optimist, you will have had some pain in your life to qualify. You'll have met setbacks, even despair. Being an optimist is hard work and requires some effort, some originality of thought. Why is that? Why should that be? After all, we live in an age, not without its difficulties, when life expectancy across the world's population has never been greater. When there's less war, less disease, less famine than at any time in the history of mankind. People of my generation never thought we would see the fall of the Berlin Wall. A black president in the White House? or countless millions being lifted out of poverty in countries like India and China and Vietnam. But our national psyche has changed, and it's changed because we're being conditioned by a 24/7 media devoted to the commercialisation of anxiety. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the fertiliser in which corrosive pessimism takes root. And by golly, they know how to produce the fertiliser. The media tell us, well, the truth hurts. Well, so does jumping on a bicycle with a seat missing. But their assumption is that scaremongering, masquerading as headlines, and misleading contextualisation is the truth. My feelings about the modern media can best be summed up, ladies and gentlemen, by Owen, a character from The Vicar of Dibley, when he said, "I like the Times, not too rough on the buttocks." It's no accident that we are gathered in Dundee, a distinguished city, the home of Jute, the home of jam, the home of journalism. But it is also, ladies and gentlemen, the home of the Beano. And when I think of the Beano, I think of fun. And fun matters. It matters because it nourishes and sustains our emotional health. And those words, emotional health, they were conceived by the Samaritans, who have helped those amongst us who have discovered what lies in the cellar below the palace of pessimism. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we of all people, know what the power of the spoken word can achieve. Think of those few well-chosen words of the flying instructor and how they changed everything in just a few seconds. And so, despite the difficulties which have been thrust upon us, let us use our gift of speech to lift our spirits and the spirits of those around us. And let us learn to enjoy the great flying lessons of life.